Welcome back to Orlando Matters. Finishing up our conversation this morning with John Gihon, a former senior attorney with Immigration Service. Thanks for sticking around the whole half hour today. We hear time and time again that if we just rounded up all the illegal immigrants, sent them back to their home country, our economy would collapse. Is that true?
I don't think so. While the overwhelming majority of the 11 million people who are here in this country without status are fine, upstanding members of society, if we remove all of them, the economy won't collapse. That doesn't mean we should remove them, but it won't collapse. You'll simply pay more in many aspects of your life. You're going to pay more for your agricultural related industries. You're going to pay more for your fruit. You're going to pay more for your vegetables. You're going to pay more for your houses. You're going to pay more in all of the industries that are currently using illegal workers and exploiting them.
It's funny you say that. Then that tells me there's not a big will by the American people just to round everybody up and get them out of here, because you want your landscaping to be inexpensive. You want your house to be inexpensive. And I think here in Florida, we probably exploit that labor maybe more than most other states.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people in the state of Florida happen to know someone who doesn't have lawful status. And a lot of times you say, well, you know, deport all these other people who we don't like, the criminals, but don't deport my neighbor because he's a good guy and he's got a family and he works hard. And I think that's what a lot of people feel, and we see it all the time.
How do companies do this, though? Because when we see work groups out and about on construction sites or wherever it might be, there's the thought that, okay, they're probably illegal. Do companies just hire them, pay them cash, not pay taxes? I don't even know how it works. Is that the normal situation?
What I have seen is a lot of times you'll have contractors who hire subcontractors, and it's mostly the subcontractors who will hire a crew, and they'll say they're employing, let's say 5, but then they bring 15 different guys to the site, and they're only paying workers' compensation or unemployment compensation for some of them, and then some person happens to get hurt at the site, and then that's where we see it when it comes into the criminal justice system. And so you'll have 15 people, most of which don't have documents, and they're paid literally nothing, and so the subcontractors are able to put in bids that are way lower than people playing by the rules.
I have a friend who owns a company here in town, and he tells me that all the time, that if he has to bid on contracts. He plays by the rules, so he has higher cost, and he said it's killing him. You know, he could break the rules and actually keep his business going, or I mean, it seems like a catch-22 for these guys. Is that the system we've set up?
Yes, the system we've set up, it even gets worse than that. Is we're requiring employers, you need to check the immigration documents to make sure people are able to work here legally. However, if you ask too many questions, the Department of Justice comes in and says you're discriminating against people because of their national origin or because they don't speak English. And so I've talked to so many employers who run into that situation and say, what am I supposed to do? If I don't check the documents, Homeland Security is coming after me. If I check too hard, Department of Justice is coming after me. And so ultimately, you're just in a catch-22 where you try to find a balance and you still try to run a business, and it's hard.
So there's no way for these guys to win.
No.
I mean, if you hire illegals, then the Justice Department comes and says, wait, why are you checking so close?
Right.
Is there a solution to that or no?
I don't know.
Right now.
How about less government? That seems to solve the problem. Is if we have less bureaucracy and less of the government coming down on us in every aspect of life, especially in business, that will solve a lot of these problems.
I also want to go back to the issue we talked about a second ago about terrorists. And that seems to be the big threat since 9/11. They'll come across the Canadian border, they'll come across the Mexican border. In your position, when you were a senior attorney with the government, was that a big issue for the government? Was it something that was focused on or no?
Absolutely. Here in Orlando, we have the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and I worked with officers from across the state of Florida on the task force all the time. And law enforcement works real hard in certain areas to really try to combat terrorism from people coming into the country. A lot of times what we found were, unfortunately, people would come into the country legally, and we saw that in 9/11. I think every single one of the terrorists came in on some sort of visa, and they simply overstayed. And so it's not just people coming over the border. It's people coming into the country legally and then violating the rules.
What about the drug trade? I know in Florida we have a different issue here. We're looking at workers, but along the Mexican border, it's shootouts all the time, we hear. Is there a solution to that?
You mean as far as legalizing drugs?
I don't know. I'm open. Well, we just saw a report this week that more drugs are going south from states that have legalized drugs. So, yeah, you make the playing field level, and I guess it goes both ways, huh?
I found, as a former prosecutor also, I found that people who are going to be criminals, who are going to lead a life of crime, aren't going to suddenly change their ways and join the normal law-abiding citizens simply because you legalize drugs. They're not going to open up a shop and go and get licenses and sell drugs legally. they're going to continue to engage in the crimes because it's quick, it's easy, and it's profitable. So if it's not marijuana coming across the border, it's cocaine, it's heroin, it's guns, it's weapons, it's people. And so they will always find, that as criminals, will always find a way to commit crimes, and they'll stay in that life.
I'll leave the last couple minutes to you. What don't people know? I mean, you were on the front lines of this for years. What are some of the misconceptions people have about immigration in the U.S. right now?
One of the, I think, big misconceptions that we have here in the United States is that by the president taking an action like he has currently, and that is from shielding 5 million people from deportations, that somehow he's protecting these individuals. And really, what he uses as a basis for it is, I'm going to save resources. I'm going to save taxpayer money. Secretary Johnson said we can't go out and find every single one of them and deport them. But the kind of dirty little secret is that most of these 11 million people have never come across the radar of law enforcement or of immigration. And so they're not at any risk whatsoever of being deported from the United States. And so we're not saving any resources by the president engaging in these executive actions. And that's simply, it's not true.
All right, John, we're going to have to leave it at that. Sorry to cut you off there, but we're at the back of the show. Appreciate you being here today, John Gihon, former senior attorney with ICE. Appreciate your time today. All right, we'll